Hey, what do you Hey, episode 2, Kickin It podcast. What the fuck is going on, everyone? First and foremost, I want to thank everyone that watched episode 1, that messaged me, that sent me advice, critique, told me how much I'd done their head in. Everyone, thank you. I appreciate it. My phone overheated from the amount of messages and notifications, which is what you want. It's exactly what you want. Yeah, the questions thing. I had a feeling that that question idea would be an easy way to start the podcast and do episode 1 that way, and it was. It made it a lot easier because this shit's not easy. Go home. You might be home already. Put your front camera on your phone and talk for 20 minutes without stopping about a topic, and it's not easy. Like when I first got all the equipment, I was like, all right, let's go. And I hit record, and I got about 40 seconds in, and then silence. I was like, fuck, like, what was it saying? Where am I going? You know? But it took a while. Now it's a lot easier just to keep talking shit, and it's pretty much just talking to yourself in front of a camera and a mic. That's legit what it is. And I mean, we all talk to ourselves in our head out loud, you know, including myself. I'm fully pro schizophrenia and talking to myself. I love a good chat with myself. Will happily admit that. Showers. I feel like an MPQC with those fucking white curly wigs on. Oh, there is not an argument I can lose in the shower. Come out of the shower, get into an argument, buckle. I just fuck, you know. Then you go shower the next day and you think about an argument for that argument. You're like, fuck, why didn't I think of it then? And yeah, so it is hard, but look, I've always been a natural shit talker, so it's not that hard for me. I'm not gonna lie, but it's obviously a lot easier if there's someone else there, whether it's another co-host or a guest, because then it just becomes a conversation where now it's more of a performance, because I'm not talking to anyone. I'm talking to you. Like, yeah, just in there. That's who I'm talking to. But you're not there yet. Eventually you'll be on the other side of a screen and you'll see it. But right now, no, it's just myself. I've been collecting records for a while now. I have a pretty decent collection, and what I thought I'd do for each episode is pull out a record out of one of the crates and talk about it a little bit. So the record that I've chosen for this episode is by the one and only Immortal Technique, The Third World. Man, where do you start with Immortal Technique? He is the last of a dying breed, the last with that real old school hip hop essence. Completely independent on his first album. Literally took money that he made from rap battles and recorded his first album Revolution. Excuse me, I got a bit sick. I got the Black Plague. I'm alright, but yeah, took the earnings from winning rap battles to record his first album, Revolutionary Volume 1, and that was literally like 2 songs in this studio, 1 song in that studio, 3 in the next, and just made it happen, did it all himself, and took off from there. And this album specifically, Third World, it's got the back's cool too. I'll show you that as well. He's got he's playing chess in rubble. He's so legit. He's just a self-driven, self-confident, revolutionary-minded, angry motherfucker who's quick to call the government out on their bullshit, and I fucking love that. I believe this album was recorded in 07 or 08, and he used the proceeds from this album with no major label backing or support. He used the proceeds from this album to build an orphanage in Kabul in Afghanistan. And that's fucking huge when you consider how little some artists, rappers or other artists have done with major record label backing, a team of 1,000 people with a budget of millions. We're gonna have to pluralize that, definitely. A budget of millions of dollars, and have done sweet fuck all for anyone ever. And then there's this guy who makes, I think it was not I'm not 100%, but I think it was about 90,000 or 100 and something thousand that he invested with. He teamed up with another organization, and they literally. There's a documentary. It's called the Revolution of Immortal Technique. Watch that shit if you're a hip hop fan, especially if you're an Immortal Technique fan. If you haven't seen it, watch that. And yeah, I'm talking, he was there hands-on in Afghanistan. He didn't just send money. He was there helping build it, playing with these kids, helping them get set up and set in. And yeah, it's super legit. He practices what he preaches. And yeah, like I said, quicker than any rapper to call the government out on their bullshit. So yeah, Immortal Technique, Third World, fucking legit album, like all his albums. Speaking of calling the government out on their bullshit, turns out it's okay to fuck little kids. Who would have thought? You know, according to fucking Tony Abbott and Eyebrows, aka John Howard, two former prime ministers, it is totally fine to support people that fuck little kids. That's what I got out of their support and their character references for George Pell, the sick fuck. Like, in 2015, a Liberal senator by the name of Bill Heffernan, Liberal label, a senator, but that was his name, Bill Heffernan, approached Parliament with a list, a document that had 20-something known pedophiles on this list that was leaked and somehow ended up in his hands. On this list was former prime ministers, judges, high-ranking priests, like the elite of the elite. The Attorney General was shown this list, as were former Attorney Generals. No one ever denied this list existing. No one ever denied that the names that were on this list were true, or like that it was true that the people on this list were known pedophiles. It just disappeared. No one ever spoke about it again. No one ever said nothing ever again. And now, this was 2015. Now, 2019, you have two former prime ministers supporting a convicted pedophile. So 2015, this list comes out, which no one speaks of, and chances are, you know, they rebuted it and denied it. But yeah, 4 years later, you literally have two former prime ministers publicly supporting a convicted pedophile, as he did. So the same way John Howard and Tony Abbott are supporting George Pell, George Pell did that exact same thing for decades prior to him being charged and convicted. So it just tells me that if George Pell was supporting pedophiles and then gets convicted of pedophilia and child sexual abuse and molestation, what does that say about John Howard and Tony Abbott? To me, it says that they're cut from the same cloth. How else would you look at it? Who else would support that shit if it doesn't benefit them? You know what I mean? That's the only way that I can break it down. Even before he was convicted, how on earth can you support someone that supports pedophiles? Like Gerard Ridsdale, for example. This is a man who was ordained in 1961. The first complaint an allegation against him about his behavior with children came in, you fucking guessed it, 1961. He literally, as soon as he got 1 foot in the door, he was like, yo, where them little boys' booty holes at? Instantly, as soon as he was ordained, he started sexually abusing children. And I think by the time he was convicted, I think he was charged and I think he was charged twice and went to court twice, once in the 90s and then once in the 2000s. We're talking 80 plus victims, people who to this day would be scarred and mentally damaged because of Ridsdale's actions. Your boy George Pell was there by his side, staying staunch, supporting the whole way. And it's decades and dozens of cases that he supported. You have, well, what was it? Victor Rubero, something like that. Like I said, I try not to remember these sick fucks' names. I would rather remember other people's names, before pedophile priests. This Victor literally sexually abused 2 generations of the same family. So there were two twin brothers who were altar boys in this Victor Rubeo's church, and age 8 and 9. I mean, they were the same age, but around the age of 8 and 9, he molested and abused both of them, right? Then these boys eventually got... Listen to this sick shit. So he did whatever he did to these 2 altar boys when they were kids. He then went on to also be the priest that married them, right? Then, once they had kids and their own families, and I'm pretty sure he was the one that was super, like, took on a alpha male role in their houses as well. So he didn't just abuse them; he belittled these boys, which eventually turned into men, their whole life. Like, was in their house whenever he wanted to do, was making decisions. I think it was also giving them a lot of money and paying for shit, and just sort of took control of this household. And then he ended up also molesting the kids of one of these altar boys that he molested as a kid. So it is fucked up. So you molest these 2 men when they're kids. You have the audacity to marry them when they get married. Then take over their household and invite their children to come over to your house to literally watch him masturbate. What? And so this is the sort of shit that has fucking gone on decade after decade after decade, and has been, they've gotten away with it for decades, with no regard for how the victims have felt, for no regard for how these people are going to go on living their life. And George Pell also was the same man that said that homosexuals shouldn't be allowed to adopt children because homosexuality leads to suicide, and that homosexuality is more dangerous for society than smoking. Straight up his words. The same guy who is having unconsensual homosexual sex with underage kids, majority being boys. I don't fucking get it. How can you publicly hate homosexuals when you're supporting homosexual pedophiles and also are involved in homosexual sexual abuse. The mind boggles. I have no fucking idea how. This is the same guy that said, I think George Pell was also the guy that said, and was a supporter of the seal of confession, which is similar to how doctors have that patient-doctor confidentiality. So your doctor can't tell anyone aside from you about your medical records. There's a similar thing that churches have where priests can't tell anyone what they hear during confession. Now, there was I think South Australia and Canberra had passed the law where priests were obliged to tell police if someone confessed, specifically priests, confessed to sexually assaulting children. And there was a huge stink that was kicked up. George Pell once again being at the head of it. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the law ended up getting either revoked or not spread. I think it just stayed in the 2 states or the 1 state that passed it. So is this how they justify their actions? Like if this is a priest who genuinely believes in what he preaches and teaches, how can they go to sleep and live their life truly? Like, I'm having a hard time wording it. How do they live their life and still believe what they preach? Or do they even believe what they preach? If they're committing this evil and getting away with it, do they still believe if they confess they're going to heaven? Like, I honestly don't understand the thinking behind it. Is that what they believe? So are they just confessing this and assuming all is swell? I honestly, I don't get it. And the main thing I just wanted to get out on this podcast was, how the fuck do they still have so much support? That's what I don't understand. I'm not talking about, I'm sure some self-centered fuck is going to take this as a direct attack on them and the Catholic Church. That's not what this is. I'm talking about specifically the ones that are doing this shit, and there's a lot. I'm not attacking the Catholic Church only. There's a bunch of religious organizations that have been that have blood on their hands. But how can they still have so much support publicly by such influential people and people that are meant to be running countries or that have run countries? How do you put faith in government? How do you put faith in the leader of your country when there is 2 former ones here supporting a pedophile? I don't get it. I'm just glad that I was at a young age exposed to critical thinking. Like, my old man was always, stop, have a good think about it. How do you feel about it? And then make a decision. You know, fuck what they're saying. My old man is big on that. Like, fuck what they're saying. It's stop, calculate that shit in your head, because we all know, everyone knows deep down inside what's right and what's wrong. You know what I'm saying? No one was taught not to king hit their mum. You know what? No one needed to tell you that it's wrong to kick an old person when they're walking slow or yell at them. Only a piece of shit would do that. A real person with a real soul and a functional brain knows what's right and what's wrong. So I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad I can look at shit like this and decide for myself what's right and what's wrong. I don't need, like, I'm not supporting something or agreeing with something just because two prime ministers told me that's the case. And thank fuck. I feel sorry for the people that do. And I believe that a lot of people would look at because mainstream media has been tiptoeing around this shit. That's a fact. Even Andrew Bolt, he had, so the episode before the one that I'm talking about, fucking sponsors out of the ass, getting that paper. Then the episode where he decided to support Pell and say how bullshit it was and how they only listened to one victim's account or whatever he went into. No sponsors, none of that shit on that episode. Literally pulled, I'm talking Audi, like big names. I probably should have had the list up. It's 10 plus huge sponsors that they took off that episode. And then the next episode, they were back on getting their paper. No ads, you know. So he knew what he was doing was bullshit because he wouldn't have pulled the ads and the sponsors off that episode. But still, mainstream media, former politicians, high-ranking are supporting these people. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, well, if they're saying he was conspired against, you know, it's former prime minister, it has to be true. And that shit actually flies. It has been flying for fucking decades. They, like I said, this syndicate of sick fucks have been holding each other afloat forever. And are going to continue to do so until people start calling them out. Calling them out and like I said, not just calling out the people that are committing these crimes, but calling out the people that are supporting these people. That's as big a problem as the sexual abuse is. Because, like I said, there is no regard for how the victims feel. Tony Abbott, John Howard, Andrew Bolt, and whoever else has publicly supported Pell has had no consideration for how the victims feel. Could you imagine going through that from when you were a kid, literally living your whole life with that, and then seeing the leaders of your country supporting the same person who has literally ruined your whole life? That's fucked. What faith do you have in your country? What faith do you have in your system? What faith do you have in your church? What faith do you have in anything once this evil is being supported publicly? And I just wanted to get that out there. It's been doing my fucking head in for so long. And yeah, I started recording this yesterday, and I was sick as fuck, and talking about it does my head in that much. I was already like having a fever, and I just started sweating, and I stopped. I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. Hopefully I'll feel a bit better, which I do. The black plague's wearing off now, so I'm good. Yeah, so if I can say anything, it's don't take anyone's word for anything, especially not the media and high-ranking people, because we've seen time and time again the bullshit that gets supported and the evil that gets supported by mainstream media, high-ranking politicians, and the problem with these kinds of cases is the police have to make these high-profile arrests because then they cop the backlash. So if they're brought a case where someone like George Pell has been accused of whatever he was accused of, they have to act. They have to make the arrest just to get the heat off them. Where the real problem is after that is their job is done. It is out of the police hands. It gets turned over to the courts, the prosecution, and that's where like I said, that list that came up of known pedophiles had a bunch of judges on it. So if that's who's administering justice is the same people that are on some of these lists, what are the chances of, justice being served? And let's not forget, I can't remember where I read it or watched it. Fun fact: those white wigs that judges wear, how that started back in, I can't remember what years it was, but judges were having sex and contracting syphilis from having sex with prostitutes. Is it syphilis? Might not have been. Regardless, were contracting a disease that was making their hair fall out. So judges have been fucking nasty forever. Let's take them off the pedestal. Take them off the pedestal because their history speaks for itself as well. Yeah, a bunch of them ended up going bald, or patches of their hair going bald because of whatever diseases they were contracting from these prostitutes. So they invented these real swagged out wigs that they would wear to look presentable, and so people wouldn't be in court going, "Oof, look at the judge with the dirty pussy bald spots." And yeah, so fun fact, that's how them wigs started. That's all for this episode. Like I said, I'm not having to dig at anyone. I'm not trying to offend anyone. That's I'm not trying to be a shock value podcast. I'm not trying to go viral for, pissing people off. This is a genuine problem, whether you're a Catholic or not. It's a problem for everyone, and it's a problem everyone, Catholic or not, should be addressing and doing something about, calling out the bullshit. If someone's supporting pedophilia and people are fine with it, that's a problem within itself. And if you don't see a problem with it, well, then you are the problem also. Kickin It podcast. Thank you for watching. Next episode, I'm gonna have my boy Andrew Stevens Stevon from DVSR. He's officially, I think he said he was finished writing the new DVSR album. Anyway, next episode, we'll get into all that. You'll hear it from him. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know your thoughts. Comment your thoughts about how you feel. This is just how I feel. I could be wrong. I could be right. It's just how I feel. Yeah, let me know how you feel, whether you agree, whether you don't agree. Kickin It podcast. Thank you for watching. Peace.